Welcome back to the Rose Quartz Divorce Podcast. We're here to discuss the divorce process with some alternative perspectives. My name is Diana D'Amato, and I'm a meditation teacher and a grief recovery specialist and a mom. And I'm checking in today as really excited to be here and also exhausted from the week that we've had behind us. Large learning curves going on with the podcast process, of course, but also yesterday is one of my big teaching days. A couple days a week, I teach several classes a day, and the next day I always feel the sort of all the energy going through my body and leaving, and I need to lay down. I need a rest day.
I
How
hear
about
you.
you?
I am Stephen J. Brice. I am an entrepreneur. I am a counselor. I am a friend. I am a free thinker. So fasten your seatbelt. And I'm checking in as tired, but really excited about my wellness weekend coming up where I get to unplug and no one will be able to reach me.
Got the message. Good to know. Okay. Good for you, Stephen. That's
Thank
what
you.
we all need to unplug. And if everybody talks about self-care, but like actually doing it, especially if you're not a single person with no responsibilities really,
Yeah.
um, yeah, how do you like actually schedule an appointment when you have kids and dogs and bills and yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And other unsaid responsibilities.
Exactly. Well, good for you. I'm glad to hear that. So, well, this is part two. I want to thank people for coming along for part two of our first release for this podcast. And we touched last week upon the article from the Smithsonian Magazine that I had found that had said that the likelihood of a first marriage lasting more than 20 years was down to about a 50-50 probability. And I reflected on our conversation about it in the few days we've had in between. And I realized, like, I thought that was such a crazy bet to take.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and you were like, well, no, like, yeah, a lot of people would take that bet. And to me, I think because of the way I grew up and the things I saw in my house and with I had one parent, and I had one parent who had a very active social life, and I'll get into at some other time the things that I saw as a young child. So I think I have become, in terms of relationships, risk averse.
Hmm.
So that did not sound like a good bet to me, which may explain why I didn't get married till I was 39. Thought I was hedging my bets on that.
And I think you're smart for that, right? You took your time, you're counting the costs. Folks like us, whatever that might mean, we grew up. I grew up in a context where marriage was the end goal, and I'm pretty sure you had that, orientation to some degree as well. But given the nature that I was a preacher and all the pressures around, being a preacher and things like that, um, marriage was something that needed to happen, or it felt like it needed to happen. And so, for me, when I was thinking about getting married to my kid's mother, one of the questions that I was asking myself was, if it didn't work out, what will the post relationship look like? Right? Would there be drama? Would I still have a good relationship with my former in-laws and vice versa? And so I sat and really thought about that. And I concluded that we're two really good people who care about doing good in the world and honoring God and not being involved in and with drama. And so my bet was, if we work out, great. If we do not work out, I think we'll be able to co-parent and coexist and even be good friends, and the the extended family will still be able to be coexist together. And so that bet turned out to be positive for us. My kid's mom and I, we have a pretty good relationship. We center our kids. The extended family are all in support. Of course, everybody wish that we would have made it, but life happens. But I'm very thankful that we are in a good space.
So I think that's incredible. And I did not have that kind of um, thoughtful process around what I'm interpreting as almost like an exit strategy. So, as a businessman, entrepreneur as you are, I get that, and as a business lady, that's what clicked for me, and I think that could be very helpful. That could be a helpful thing for people to ponder because I personally, and let me know what you think, don't find prenuptial agreement conversations very helpful. I think
Mm,
they're very triggering for people. But
right.
again, just like we have rephrased what is a successful marriage and flip that on its head, maybe we can rephrase that process. And let
Mm.
me know what you think about that, about having an exit strategy.
So I understand that when it comes to getting married, we like to think about love and my life partner and all of that. And I get it. I get the Disney like or the fairy tale ideals surrounding getting married, right? Because a lot of folks really focus on the process or the act of getting married more than they think about the actual marriage, right? Those are two different things. Everyone wants to get married, but I don't think everyone understands what it's like to be married, and rightfully so, because if you've never been married, you don't know what it's like to be married, right? And so that's why it's important for that's why this podcast is so important. These really raw, transparent conversations that we are having is so important, especially for those who've not been married, right? So I just want to make sure I name that. And so when you're thinking about getting married and being married, yes, I understand you want to center love, and I would dare add center respect. But we must also understand that marriage is a contractual agreement. You actually sign a marriage agreement, right?
That's
Is
right.
it?
And, it makes me think of like the historical process of getting married included an exchange of assets. I get
Yeah,
what did they call it back then? Like the dowry, right?
yeah.
And that came from the female partner's family, I
Hmm.
guess. And then there was some kind of like show of wealth or ability to take care by the male
Right.
partners or partner's family, right? So that was sort of a contract and exchange of goods
Yeah.
or services, I guess, before there were pieces of paper that we had to sign.
When you're getting married, the judge doesn't ask how long have you all been in love. The judge asks, what do you have in place? What documents? What do you have a prenup? Do you all have an agreement in place as to how the divorce needs to be handled? Think about that.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so I'm going to get a little anti-patriarchy for a second here though. Just for a moment. I think though what the problem was in his very, in historical sense is that if at some point the male partner decided that the female partner was no longer serving his needs. We can go back to like Henry VIII or something like that for,
Yeah.
an extreme version, but then it would be allowed for him to change his mind or somehow dispose of that woman, or to take on other relationships that were not necessarily part. So I think it puts the male partner, historically speaking, in a more powerful position,
Yeah.
and we're still catching up as women. But that's possibly why prenuptial agreements came about.
Mm,
Maybe, is to find out, to assure that a woman wouldn't be left with nothing
right.
if there were some beyond her control. But I think it's very triggering because as a woman, I can tell you then this is a statistic, like the single fastest way to fall into poverty is for a woman to become a single mom.
That's unfortunate.
Hmm.
That is unfortunate. And I let me just say, I think us men need to do a better job in taking care of our ex spouses. Right.
And
So
the children, it really is what, too, like that's what has to be taken care of. Because I think, listen, I am aware of the other side too, where like there are times when the provider gets taken advantage of.
right.
Right. And so maybe again, this is why, these agreements are in place. So I think there are a lot of really good men out there that want to and or are doing the right thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and I think there's it might even be societal pressure. There's something to be said for the fact that women have been speaking up about it for now
Mm,
decades. So it's, I think, a little more embarrassing for a guy to be a deadbeat in 2025 than it was 50 years ago.
it should be.
Okay.
It
And
should
that's
be.
not that long ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even 20 years ago, it's, there's a little more accountability now. So that's something to think about.
I really think we should talk about the prenup piece, right? Because
Mhm.
I hear you saying it's triggering, and I want to kind of unpack that some more. Um, I think a prenup protects everyone, right? So if two individuals can agree on the terms that is fair for both parties, I think it could lead to a positive outcome, right? For the marriage, for the assets, for the children, and things like that. What do you think?
I like the way you're reframing it. And I want to thank you because honestly, for me, for some reason, it has, and no one's ever asked me to sign a prenup. I just play this out in my head. Like, if somebody would, here's how I would feel. I
Yeah,
play that out for all the women everywhere, but not that they need me to. But it's like, I think there's something about it that makes it sound like the woman is a gold digger, and I'm
mhm,
gonna make sure I don't get dug.
gotcha.
Mm.
I got you. So if that's the case, I think it's important that the man um, is open to the terms and conditions that the woman might need in order for the prenup to be fair, right? And I would never sign the prenup, to be honest with you. This is me thinking post marriage, like, okay, if I get married again, I think I'm gonna do a prenup, right? But it is to make sure that we have a mutual understanding of if the marriage doesn't work out, right? I'm not saying that we're getting married to get a divorce. But the reality, as we mentioned in the last episode, marriages end. There's a 50% chance that marriage will end divorce. So not that we want it to end in divorce, but like from a status standpoint, it might end in divorce. So we have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Like, just like with insurance and things like that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think insurance is like also triggering, but
That's a
for
fact.
me, right?
That's another episode. Stay tuned.
Right. Oh my goodness. So, but there's a case to be made even for insurance that it's there for peace of mind. And I
Sure.
think that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I actually, this for me is very, very helpful. Like but I'm gonna have to cut that out because the mail just came.
And my cleaning people are here too, so I don't know if you get the back.
Hey, listen, life keeps lifing.
Yep.
You can't, stop everything just because you got
Facts.
something special to do. So, but I think for me, it's just very interesting because I I already feel a little bit better about that process. So, like, if somebody were to ask me, in the future about a prenup, I wouldn't have such a charge around it and such an immediate reaction. So, um, thank you for
Absolutely.
talking us through the hard stuff.
And as long as it is fair, right, that you have an input in it and your voice and you're taken care of, I think there is benefit to having the prenup.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I heard you say, that is on the partners to talk to each other and make each other feel safe and validated and, that this is not a way of saying one person's after the other person's money. It could be
Right,
either, who knows who
right.
has the money, but right? So it's not a like thing that people might look at and go like, "Oh yeah, you know, like you better protect yourself because so and so's you're the person you're thinking about marrying or going to marry is going to take you for everything you've got."
The if you feel like if a man feels that way about a woman, why would you marry her in the
Well,
first
I
place?
don't think he would, but I think his friends would. I think other people
Yeah,
would. Yeah.
that is true. But you should before anyone gets married, you should be solid within yourself as much as you possibly can and
Yeah.
know who you're marrying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Ab-
again, when I start to think about if this marriage would not work out, if it was not if we were not able to work things out and we ended in divorce, would we still be able to get along?
right.
That discernment period, like you have to sit with yourself and have those that conversation with yourself, which will then challenge: do you really know the person that you're marrying? And in my case, I knew the person I was marrying, and so even though we're not married, I still not only do I take care of my kids, but I still take care of her. I tell her all the time, "You're under my financial covering until you get married. When you get married, I'm only taking care of the kids. But until until that day comes, whatever you need, if I have it, is yours on top of what I already give for the kids."
Well, you're a very special guy. You really are. I mean, I think that's something that it would make more women feel safe to hear that. And I think, that's the thing. Like you can't rebuild your life without some kind of runway. And
Right,
most people, they do want to. They don't want to sit around and just like take someone's money. They want to get on with things. They want to
right,
get, their next chapter going. So, but we all need a little support. And when you're a person who is going through a divorce, even if you're sure it was the right thing and you've been decimated financially, emotionally, spiritually, it's very hard
yeah,
to get on with things, right? So you do need that support, that financial support, but you like need it so that you can get a job, that you can, find whatever livelihood that, you're rebuilding. So
right,
I truly believe that. I'm sure there are, people out there that, are doing things for reasons that I just don't have enough of a criminal mind to understand. But but overall, I really think, once we get through that first stage, of grief and denial, and that when we get on with things, we all really want to turn the page.
Yeah. I really want to hear from from the guys. To the guys listening to this, please chime in. Let me know what your scenario is, and let's really talk about it. I really feel that in my spirit that there's gonna be guys that will hear this episode or watch this episode, and they'll be triggered by this. Like, nah, bro, like my situation is different. I want to hear from you. Let's talk about it. Let's wrestle through this. Just a quick commercial break there.
Agree. No, I would really like to hear from some guys too, because being on this side of it, being the female or whatever partner in this on this side, who I am in a position where I need some support right now. I need a runway. I'm trying very hard. I'm working, right?
Yeah,
And I'm rebuilding, but I need a runway to kind of get me back to zero, which I consider kind of where I was at the beginning of my marriage. I just want to get those feet back on the ground. I don't need to be made into, some kind of kept person. I like to do things. I want to do things, and it makes you feel good when you
yeah,
have your own things that you paid for. So I would like to hear though too from
yeah.
from some guys about this one. So okay, well, Stephen, it's always a pleasure to get
Like,
together and talk about the tough stuff.
yeah.
And and I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and of course to our friend Joshua Bright for our music. And anyone else you want to thank today?
I want to give a shout out to your dog.
Can you
That's
hear that?
Yeah, that's making a great. Your dog is preaching and is co-signing our conversation.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
love
really
it.
like it was stressing me out right now. I'm like, listen, I
And
have a puppy. Okay, I have a puppy, and the puppy is very attached to me. It was supposed to be my daughter's puppy because she was sad about the divorce. Let's talk puppies. She promised me she would stop crying if I got her this puppy, and now I have a puppy. She doesn't want anything to do with this. So.
Life be life it. But seriously, shout outs to Yoga for the World. Shout outs to our partners in this work. Shout outs to you, our visionary, the brainchild behind all of this. And shout outs to all of our listeners. Make sure you subscribe, like, repost, challenge our thoughts, chime in. Let's keep the conversation going, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Real soon.
Bye
All
for
right,
now.
Steven, you rock.